All right, so let's find the median of some data. So let's say this is our set of data. We got these 5 numbers. Well, the median number is the number right smack dab in the middle. So 40 would be the median in that set of data. All right, now let's look at this set of data. What would the median be? Well, this time we have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. Well, we see that there are 2 numbers in the middle. Well, so if we're trying to describe the median, it's like, well, which number do we pick? Well, what we do is we just average them, or find the mean of the 2 middle numbers. So we're going to do 20 plus 40 divided by 2, which gives us 30. So the median this time is 30. All right. So next, all right. How would the median change if the number 120 was replaced by the number 60 in the following set of data? So what would happen if I took 120, crossed it off, and replaced it with a 60? Well, the median wouldn't change. The median would still be this number here. So the median would not change. All right. Well, what about this time? How would the mean change if the number 120 was replaced by the number 60 in the following data set? So let's say we crossed off this 120 this time, replaced it with a 60. My question is, well, what's going to happen to the average of this data set? Well, the mean would decrease. So if you took 5 tests and you got a 15, a 20, a 40, a 50, and a 120, you would have a better average than if you had a 15, 20, 40, 50, and a 60. So just changing one of your test scores does change your test average. However, if you change your highest test score, in this case, it would not change. If you took your highest test score and made it a little lower, or a lot lower, that would not change your median test score. So we see the median, it's not affected by outliers, but the mean is. All right, one more way to describe a data center is with the mode. So the mode of a data set is the value that occurs with the greatest frequency, or in other words, the data value that occurs the most often. Now you might be wondering why the mode is used to describe a data center, or what it has to do with describing typical data values. Well, if you look at our histograms before, we see that the data value that occurs the most often, well, that's the tallest bar on a histogram. And we see that the mode in normally distributed data is right smack dab in the middle, or in the center of our histogram. And in this left skewed data here, well, the mode is still kind of near the center. So in a lot of data sets, the data value that occurs most often is right smack dab in the middle of your histogram. So that's why we classify the mode as a measure of center, or of a way of describing where typical data values happen. So the mode of a set of data is the value that occurs with the greatest frequency. So a set of data might have no mode, one mode, or more than one mode. All right, well, what's the mode of the following data set? Well, we got to say, well, which data value occurs the most often? And we see the number 20 occurs the most often. So 20 is the mode. All right, well, what about this time? I ask, what are the 2 modes of the following data set? Well, now we see the numbers 10 and 20 are both repeated, but they're both repeated equally often. So there's 2 modes, both 10 and 20 are modes. So this data set is called bimodal, meaning the data has 2 modes. So if we look at our data on the other page here, or our histograms on the other page, this set of data has 2 modes. It is bimodal. Both this data value right here and this data value right here occurred with the same frequency, or just as often. All right. So, well, Well, a data set could also have 3 modes. So I ask, what are the 3 modes of the following data set? Well, now 10, 20, and 30 are all repeated, and they're all repeated equally often. So this time, 10 and 20 and 30 are all modes. So we would describe this data set as being multimodal, meaning that the data has more than 2 modes. All right. And then lastly, I ask, well, why does the following data set here have no mode? Well, it doesn't have a mode because no data value is repeated. So it is possible for a data set to have no mode. All right. So our last way of describing a data center, which is the least common to use, is by using the data's mid-range. So the mid-range of a data set is the mean of the maximum data value and minimum data value. Or in other words, it's the number halfway between the max and the min data values. So I ask, well, what's the mid-range of the following data set? Well, here's the min data value, 10. Here's the max value, 100. So the mid-range is the number right between the min and max. So if you did 10 plus 100 and you divide by 2, you would get 55. So that would be our mid-range. So if you want a formula for the mid-range, you would say, okay, the mid-range is given by the min plus the max divided by 2.